we go. What's up, guys? We're back with your regularly scheduled Sunday content. No loss today. Luke is on a very, very much deserved holiday. Thankfully. Oh man, that kid! I swear to God, that kid like just always shows up and never takes a break. So he is getting some much deserved rest. I'm here with Mac and two newcomers to the show, Yodel and Theo. Happy to have you guys on.
Happy to be here.
I'm sorry. I'm like, this is the part where you guys speak.
Right. Sorry. First time.
It happens. I haven't had that happen much with guests, so it had to happen with somebody. But yes, we are here to review the much anticipated sequel to Danny Boyle's first modern zombie epic that I would say resurrected the zombie genre 28 years later. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are back directing and writing this one after just about 20. Well, actually no. So about 18 years after their last collaboration with Sunshine, released in 2007, after Alex Garland directed Civil War and also Warfare this year, it's doing a lot of stuff involved with wars. He has returned to the screenwriting format. And guys, we are here to tackle kind of. It's interesting because this movie comes out in a post-Walking Dead era, which I would say is the thing that kind of killed the zombie genre. So it's interesting. So we're going to be breaking down kind of like the origins of the modern zombie genre and kind of how that's helped contribute to this movie, especially since I would say this is probably our first real zombie movie post the streaming era and the COVID era, while also being, I would say a first legacy sequel that's actually kind of good in a sense. But real quick, Mac, I wanted to start with you. So what were your thoughts on this going in? What was your relationship to the 28 franchise, as I call it?
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out, do we call it years later, months later?
Yeah, I don't know.
Minutes or something. It's like the continuation. How about 20?
But you're right, because they skipped the months. They went they went right from weeks to months.
So I don't know how many people you know this. I'm only 25 years old. I was 2 when the first movie came out, and then I was 7 when the second movie came out. But over the years, I did go back and watch them. I absolutely loved it. So I was always waiting for that third movie. I was like, we all thought it was going to be 28 months later, and then they said, hey, we're going to do 28 years. I was like, wait, what? And then they started announcing the cast and everything like that. So, okay, this cast sounds pretty, unique. And I think it's that first trailer. The boots. I was like, yep, you sold me on that. And, I'm a big Danny Boyle fan. I like Alex Garland. I'll defend Civil War, even though it has some bad problems to it. But I was just super excited because this was going to be my first 28 later film in theaters that I got to see, and I was just interested to see what they were going to be able to do because it's been 18 years since like the last one we got, and just showing I was like how divided the second movie was. It was going to be interesting to see how they would tackle this third movie.
Yes, literally. So it's funny that you mentioned that. I literally watched 28 Days and Weeks back to back leading up to this one. And man, what a double feature, because one's a masterpiece, the other one, not so much. And this one, I'm going to save my thoughts for this one into it because I'll save it. But I'll just say that there may or may not have been some sequels that may or may not have been announced to this first installment that may have already been planned out. But Yodel, Theo, your guys' first time on the podcast. You got, what's it called? Yodel, obviously you and I met through the Neighborhood Playhouse, our acting school. Theo also is the writer of a fantastic play that they are currently in the progress of. Oh man, I'm getting my words jumbled here. In the process, that's the word I was going for. In the process of putting to what I'll just let you guys promote it because I'm gonna jumble it.
Yeah, no worries. It's in the New York Theater Festival in July this summer. It's The Monotonist. It's very relevant. Weird,
it's very relevant to what's going on now.
Yeah. It's July 21st, 23rd, and 26th.
Yes, go watch it if you guys get a chance. It's really, really good. But real quick, so what's your guys' relationship to the 28 franchise is just what I'm going to call it. What is your guys' relationship with zombie movies just in general? And just what did you guys think of this movie?
Well, I I kind of hated zombies. It was like not. I don't love zombie movies. Before, and I kind of got into it because of The Last of Us because I really loved the first season. Second season was not
Yeah, we don't talk about that second season.
right. But I think it. I mean, kind of like my I not love, but like interest in zombies started with The Last of Us, and I've been kind of waiting for a good one to come out again. And I remember seeing 28 Days Later like years ago, and then I saw this trailer, and then I was like, maybe we should watch it. We watched 28 Weeks Later, like last week for the first time, and we did not get through it.
We had to stop halfway through because it
Yeah.
stopped making sense.
Oh, only halfway through it's not making sense. For me, it's not making sense as soon as he made out with his wife. I'm like, oh,
Well, no,
No.
it was after that. Like,
Okay.
that's
We
what
made
started.
excuses for a lot of it, right? We were like,
Yeah.
okay, I just kind of want to know what happens. Let's
Right.
go. Let's just keep going. I completely stopped the movie after all like the citizens were put into like one big room for whatever
Right.
reason, and it was secured and locked, and they were trying to get out, but the one door the guy could come in. I was
Yep.
like, stop the movie. This
Yep.
is not logical.
That when that happened, I was like, "Oh, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
we're doing this." Oh, I will say though, you guys did miss one awesome action sequence as much because I am not a fan of Weeks, but you guys did miss one action sequence where Harold Perrineau literally uses a helicopter as like a lawnmower against like a bunch of zombies. But that's it. That's like the only reason to watch it.
We saw 28 Years Later at the Alamo, and the Alamo so graciously gave like points of like summary
Of
so
both movies.
of both movies. So
Mm.
we're like, great, we do get to figure out what happens
Yeah,
in
yeah,
28
yeah.
Weeks Later. And they played like a clip of that, and I was like, all right. That was kinda-
Yeah, man, the Alamo is usually very good for that. So
Yeah.
when I saw Nosferatu there at Christmas, they played like an entire history of Nosferatu, including how most people our age became aware of him, which was through SpongeBob. So
Nosferatu.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So my relationship with the 28 franchise is I'm a big fan of Danny Boyle as a filmmaker. I'm trying to think how many movies have I seen now. I've seen Sunshine, 127 Hours, Slumdog Millionaire, Yesterday, Steve Jobs, and there was like one other that I saw recently. That actually might be about it. But he's a really cool. Oh, Trainspotting, obviously. But he's a really cool, really interesting filmmaker. Very British, as you can probably tell. But I finally watched 28 Days Later, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, so this is the birth of the modern zombie genre, essentially. Like literally almost every single like trick and trope that we had come to associate with that, right down to the fucking Walking Dead ripped off its opening scene right from 28 Days Later, and also Zombieland stole its shopping sequence from also the scene from 28 Days Later. It was really cool.
To be fair, the Walking Dead comic was before 28 Years Later.
Was it? I thought it was like right around the same time.
It was like I came out right before the movie came out in the States. So because remember 28 Days Later came out in the UK first. Then it came over to here. So it was just it's one of those things where but it is funny, both of them did start with the
so it's one of those things where it's like it depends on where it lines up time wise, but it's like really similar. Okay, I get it. Oh man, that's so interesting though. Oh man, I want to find out like when that comic dropped exactly when it came out in the States. I'm like, ooh, which one came first? But yeah, so 28 Days is a combination of being really cutting edge in terms of its filmmaking because Danny Boyle is famously one of the filmmakers who did not resist and instead embraced the digital boom of the early 2000s. And you could really, really tell like the way that it's shot almost like on home video, but it adds like an extra like edge, especially with like the editing and like especially the opening scene when those dumb activists break into the another instance in which everything is kind of becoming more relevant, break into the lab and accidentally unleash the chimpanzees, then they get bitten, which is how the rage virus gets spread. And it feels really visceral. It felt really it felt really intense, like the way that the zombies attack. And also, it was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that you had ever seen fast zombies, which up until that point, like zombies were really slow, really shambling, which again makes Walking Dead even more hilarious. The fact that anybody dies in that show when those zombies move at about like 2 miles an hour. But this was the first instance of like, again, like the rage zombies, you know, and it goes back to like, there are so many different stand-up comedians that were using it. One of my favorite Chris Rock jokes of all time is utilizes the rage virus. Mac, I think I know which one I think you know which one I'm talking about. But what's it called? Literally, again, after the success of that movie, you see this string of zombie movies. You know, Dawn of the Dead and Shaun of the Dead are released in the same year. Zombieland, a bunch of others that I'm currently forgetting. And even non-zombie movies that utilized kind of a zombie structure. Like, there were other vampire movies that came out around the time as well that also kind of utilized more of like a zombie structure than a vampire structure. So you have all that. Then Walking Dead comes out, kind of really takes over the populace for a decade and kind of runs it into the ground. So you don't see zombie movies for a while. And then Yodel, you're right. I am giving this movie a lot of credit because really it is Last of Us is the reason why we have to thank for this movie and the massive reception to it. Because Last of Us, I was somebody who had not played the game, so I was unaware of it really at all. And then when I went into it, I watched the first season. I'm like, oh, this is a zombie show. I'm like, it's like HBO's version of The Walking Dead, but it's actually like good. And then the second season came out, and I'm like, and after 2 episodes, I'm like, oh, they killed Joel. Why do I need to still keep watching this? And then the irony being that it feels like it wasn't just me. That was the universal point where everybody just kind of looked at the show and was like, nah, we're out, and just jump ship.
If you played I played both games, so I knew everything that was going to happen. Looking at the reactions for all that, it was just kind of like, I just took a beer, I sat down, and I just waited, and I just said, man, glad I don't have Twitter.
Exactly. Me as well. Because, the second game is similarly divisive, but it is at least well written.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like, the performances are really solid. Yeah. But then in the adaptation, somewhere in it, it just got very jumbled. And, like, choices were made to streamline it that did not serve the plot.
Well, see, it's so funny because choices were made to streamline it, yet I understand they were splitting up the game for seasons 2 and 3. So from what I was hearing for the rest of the episodes after episode 2, it was like, oh, they just left off on another cliffhanger. And what's so funny, the irony being is that, so you have Bella Ramsey as Ellie, and then you have Caitlin Dever as Abby, right? Yep. And the irony being that I'm like, if you just switch those 2 parts, I feel like everything would be forgiven. And you can kind of solve all the problems of the show, you know? Because even if Bella Ramsey sure doesn't match the size of Abby from the game, because let's face it, Abby from the games is like, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody short of, like, say, a fucking, like, Gina Carano shaped boxer to play Abby. Like, you're gonna have to change the design from the games there. But, like, I feel like just personality wise, it just makes so much more sense if they switch. The irony being that Caitlin Dever is, like, almost a decade older than Bella Ramsey. So I just thought that was really funny how that ended up working out. Yeah. Especially since it feels like they announced Caitlin Dever cast as Abby as a direct opposition to a lot of the Ellie fan castings, which again, Bella Ramsey was like, I feel like the last one on the choice after like 18 different people.
And apparently Caitlin Dever also was in, like, when The Last of Us was going to be adapted into a movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
To be cast as Ellie, but then now she's too old. That was the problem.
Yeah,
otherwise it would have been, honestly.
Yeah, it would have been perfect. And then, do you remember who was supposed to play Joel in the movie casting?
No.
Okay, yeah, because I don't remember that. Because I do rember when they were initially going to do
Leonardo DiCaprio, probably.
Oh god, as if we needed that to happen. What's it called? But yeah, so now obviously they announced 28 years later. They announced that it was going to be sort of semi-retconning the end of 28 weeks, because famously the end of 28 weeks, you guys probably are going to finish it. 28 weeks, basically the whole bit is that the rage virus is reborn into the UK after they thought it was previously gone, and then it ends with them getting to mainland Europe. They're like, okay, we're away from the virus, but then it shows the zombies have now made their way to Paris. So this movie, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that. The rest of the outside world has managed to contain the virus to the UK. Now, basically, the problem is that they're like, yeah, everybody left in the UK. It's basically a quarantine zone. So anybody who's stuck there has to fend for themselves. So they're basically SOL. So basically how this movie starts is you're following this small little island community that's connected to the mainland via this massive causeway. And you have Aaron Taylor Johnson portraying this father of this son, and he's basically taking him out on his first training ritual. And we basically get to see, this movie is basically kind of our intro into how specifically the UK is shifted in the wake of the rage virus. And we see a whole bunch of different things that we were not expecting. We get fat dirt zombies. We get alpha zombies. We get the regular rage virus. We get all sorts of things. So I guess in order to start this off, we're going with Yodel and Theo. What did you guys think of, like, kind of how the UK environment has shifted and kind of the new world that we're living in, kind of within this world, and kind of how do you think it like differs and compares to like other previous zombie worlds that we've seen? Because the thing too is that like most zombie stories we see like only kind of the introduction of the virus, and then we kind of leave it behind once the movie ends. But this one, we're like, oh no, we're going to continue to explore this world.
That's what I'm kind of I'm very new to the zombie genre, and most of my basis is from The Last of Us. It felt very new, the whole like mutation of the zombies and like having different types of zombies, because I feel like Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead, very much the same type of one note running zombie type of thing. Versus now there's different types to kind of practice on, different like obstacles, which I thought was really cool. And when we were talking about it, because we saw it last night, so it's very fresh on our minds.
Perfect.
We were talking about it on the way back home. It felt very edgy, but like modern edgy. Like it felt like, because 28 Weeks was a flop, sure, fine. But like 28 Days had such an early 2000s edge. And then now it just feels like a modern day edgy theme to it, kind of note to it, which I enjoyed.
Yeah. And I think in addition, like setting it, I feel like most zombie movies, because it is like the most pressure cooker setting, set them in urban environments.
Oh yeah.
Because it's the most people, but this takes it away. And so you like, there's so many shots where it's almost like fucking Lord of the Rings filming in New Zealand, because they're just walking around without seeing a zombie for a while, and then suddenly they do, and stuff goes off, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like that also sets it apart. But then, yeah, it was interesting seeing how tonally, like, Boyle and Garland still managed to bring that edge, but like adapt it to the new setting and the like more like the current political climate versus like that current one, which was a lot more rough around the edges and like very punk, versus this one, yeah, the edge feels like more mature.
Very much so. Yeah. That was, I think, probably the most notable thing, is the fact that you could tell that like these are two people who are very, very familiar with this world, that do have like a new story that they want to tell in this world coming back. It was like them embracing an old friend, basically. And these two, it's funny because now we have this, obviously Danny Boyle is kind of, as Danny Boyle has become well known, obviously because of his filmography, but Danny Boyle kind of already, I feel like, had like made a mark with Trainspotting, obviously, before 28 Days Later comes out, and then he has all the films that follow up subsequently. But now we also have this relationship with Alex Garland as well, who we may not have known as much in the early 2000s. He was a novelist who then, I don't remember if he had met Boyle or if he had known him for a while, and he wrote two of the screenplays for him, for 28 Days Later and for Sunshine, before he went off and started directing. And now Garland's got this whole incredible filmography over the last 2 decades, like Ex Machina, writing Dread, Annihilation, the Devs miniseries on FX, which if you guys have not seen that, I heavily recommend. That's one of the greatest miniseries I've ever seen. And Garland has got such this interesting take on science fiction. I would say that he's kind of like, even before Denis Villeneuve, I would say he's like kind of the modern auteur of modern sci-fi. So now that we've kind of spend all this time with him as a filmmaker as well, knowing that like this is a collaboration between them, it gives this kind of like this extra edge. And you're right, Theo, that scene where they're like trekking through kind of the remains of the UK, and it's like the most country that I've ever seen the UK, because you're right, most of the time we associate like cities like London, Manchester, Birmingham with the UK, but the fact that we spend almost all of this in the country, and it really is like we're immersed in this new world. That's always the fun of sci-fi dystopian apocalypse efforts, is kind of, you're still in the world that but it's changed or been deformed so much that it feels like something completely new. So it's kind of like a weird mix of the two. Mac, what did you think of the shift from cities to country for this one?
I thought it was necessary because, we joke about how they skipped 28 months to go straight to 28 years. I think that made sense of it, because when you look at the ending of 28 Weeks Later, even if they retconned the ending that it went to Paris, because this had the potential to be another Rise of Skywalker situation where we have to fix everything. Yeah. But they did a good job of just saying like, hey, the second movie happened. It did spread out because we'll get to this later, but kids in the 28 franchises are kind of assholes. Like they explored, like, I liked it because in the first two films you kind of saw the initial stages of the outbreak. You saw what it would look like being, what's the word? Just isolated, very empty, and then just skipping almost like 3 decades later, you just see everything kind of all just ruined and then just like all abandoned because this is a world where everyone in the UK knows what's going on. They have to survive all this time. They have to worry about if they're gonna like live or not. I think that's pretty good because like even in the first movie, when you good. When Cillian Murphy first met the survivors, they were already in it. They're like, we're a month into it. It's like this shit ain't no joke. And even like we didn't get that way second film, but this one, like you already know, like even with the main kid with Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's like, yo, this is our world now. So he's like, you gotta learn how to kill, you gotta learn how to do all this and that. So I like how it kind of sets it up, and the country settings were like honestly great. Like I know we got a hint of that with the opening scene of 28 Weeks Later, but just seeing that more vast as like landscape stuff like that. And I don't know if y'all seen the ARG marketing they've done. There's a website where you can see all these classified photos and videos, stuff like that from the movies. And one of the aerial photos they have is of the Bone Temple, where we see and it's like it's really I like it because it does like feel like the throwbacks to like the Blair Witches and the Cloverfield and the Halo with marketing. And
yes,
they definitely the country setting I think helped a lot. They kind of helped tell this new journey of just how like fucked up this world is.
Yeah, and what's also cool is that not just the setting, but like the storytelling with the and kind of our intro to the characters is kind of through ritual and exploration because again, it's been so long since the last one that we kind of do have to reintroduce our audience to this new world. And what better way than to introduce it with living in this kind of totally isolated society that's going through like this, you know, this new ritual where when you turn 12, you kind of like venture out into the real world. You have to like, you know, make your first kill zombie. You have to make your first zombie kill. And it's like kind of like a great way to like reintroduce the audience to the world and like kind of the differences. And speaking of which, the Bone Temple, oh man, I've got that. I'll save that because that was just easily my best part of the movie. But so then we get into so that's kind of like our introduction to the world, and that's like kind of what the trailers tell us. But then we get into what this movie is actually about, which is like you said, this kid that is the son of Aaron Taylor Johnson, which it's still so weird to me that he's like almost middle age, basically. He's 35 now, but it's so weird since we had this like relationship with him for so long as Kick-Ass and Nowhere Boy, and then he kind of, you know, got a little older, and then he was Quicksilver in the one-off movie for Age of Ultron, and then it feels like he kind of went away for a bit. Now he's in this like whole new phase of his career where he's working with like, you know, these gritty British filmmakers. Like he's in Tenet and he's in Bullet Train, and it feels like he's like now doing like this new variation of like a Guy Ritchie movie. He's been heavily rumored for Bond for I think 2 years now, I think. And so now we have him as like we have him playing this like, you know, gruff survivor dad on this island community. And then once they get back, it's revealed that, oh, so his wife, played by Jodie Comer, who, again, Yodel, I feel like you're immediately going to go nuts for, obviously famously broke out in Killing Eve and has been making a little bit of a name for herself ever since then. For me, she really notably stood out in last year's The Bike Riders with Tom Hardy and Austin Butler. She was easily the best part about that. Very convincing Chicago accent. And she is sick of something. She's having these vivid hallucinations. She can't really tell what's going on. And so obviously this kid wants to do anything for her. And while they're on the mainland, they end up seeing a signal fire. And once they get back to the island, it's one of the island residents reveals that, oh, it's this doctor who stayed on the UK and kind of may have lost his mind. And the kid immediately goes to his dad and is like, wait, there was a doctor there this whole time and he never told us? And then Aaron Taylor Johnson's Field is like, oh, he may already have moved past, accepted the fact that his wife is dying and may have already moved past that. So then what the actual movie ends up being is this kid ends up taking his mom, who is clearly sick and dying of something, although it's not told what until the end, and he brings her onto the mainland in an attempt to find this mysterious doctor figure who's revealed to be played by Ray Fiennes. He was announced early on in the movie, and that's pretty much how the rest of the movie goes. So, Yodel, Theo, what did you guys think of that of that plot line?
I really enjoyed it. I feel like it felt like that first section was very much introducing the world and everything, but then the themes were kind of introduced there, but then they really became integrated into the actual plot when he decided to set off. Annoyingly, but also
yes.
But then he also, like, by the end of the movie, obviously proves himself to be capable of defending himself. But like, yeah, I feel like that theme of like like love in the post-apocalypse, like the whole like Memento Mori versus Memento Amoris, which was so beautifully put.
That was awesome.
I feel like that was part of it, especially we'll get to it later, but like the baby.
Yeah.
Like,
yep. Oh, I was about to say that's
that,
right. We got zombie babies back.
Exactly. The fact that there's like some, even like whether it's love or just like reproduction, but like, you know, life survives in death. Yeah, it's like this really beautiful connection between them that you get to experience.
What I was also enjoying, again, my reference is Last of Us, but what I'm enjoying about like zombie movies compared to other like monster genre movies is that it's almost never about the zombie itself, the zombies itself. And I really started appreciating that in The Last of Us, because it's very much like, yes, this apocalypse is happening, but we have multiple themes going on other than survival. And this also has been since 28 Days Later, because like 28 Days, the ultimate thing was that, yes, we're in an apocalypse, but who is scarier? Man. And like it carries through into this movie where it's like, yes, the apocalypse is happening. Yes, we have a fucking alpha zombie chasing us. But what's scarier? The fact that the mom had cancer the entire time.
Yep.
And she ultimately dies because of it. And it's the whole talk of like, there's worse ways to go. There's peaceful ways to go, which was really interesting, because then you forgot for that, what, like 15, 20 minute kind of like section of finding out what's happening to her. You almost forget we're in a zombie movie. They're surrounded by freaking bones the entire time. There's a zombie baby on the floor, but it's this beautiful image of like love, which was really, really cool. I was sobbing by the end of it. I was like, this is not the zombie movie.
Yep. As soon as I saw the end, I'm like, oh, Yodell's gonna be in tears with this.
Yeah. It was beautiful. I think I really love dynamic movies where it's not just one thing. And I feel like that's something that the thread between 28 Days and 28 Years is that it's always, you never know what's gonna happen next.
Nope.
The ending, I was gripped. I was like, yep, let's get the second movie out. I'm excited to see what's going on with this.
Yeah. I'm glad that you touched on that, because I like the ending a lot, especially you know, because we got Jack O'Connell back so soon after Sin. I mean, Jack O'Connell already freaking stole, I feel like, everybody's hearts with Sinners as Remick, and then he comes back at the end of this, and you're like, whoa, like what's he doing here? Was not expecting that.
See the fucking Power Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have fucking like them taking out the zombies with hardcore parkour, and I'm like, what is this? And then I'm like, oh, this is way too cool. Of course, the movie's gonna end here, but yeah, so a lot to unpack there, but I'm going to come back to that. So, yeah, so in exploring the world, so I had a couple of problems once we got past, like, the bits that were in the trailer, right? I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, this kid is going to drag his sick, hallucinating mom onto the island just at the chance of getting to it. Now, obviously, again, we know that Ray Fiennes is in the movie. Now that we know that Ray Fiennes plays this crazy actor, they're like, okay, they're clearly going to find each other. But, like, I'm like, this kid literally just got mad at his dad for cheating on his mom, and now he's bringing her into immediate danger. Pause. So I had a little bit of problems there. And then they end up meeting with the Swedish soldier, and that segment is like fun, but it kind of goes on too long. And then we interact with the alpha zombie. And that immediately, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, we have a massive steroid-filled zombie that's like not rotting, and it's got the biggest dick I've ever seen. I can only imagine what the internet's reaction to this is going to be.
It was interesting. Seeing
that
in IMAX was just...
And they did not try to cut away from it all. Jesus Christ. You thought that Dr. Manhattan schlong was overpronounced. God damn. Like, this thing was just flapping and waving all over the place. It felt like they couldn't cut away from it. I'm like, guys, like, I get it, but, like, come on. Like, what are we doing here? And... so, and then and this is the thing that's gonna, Mac, you know that what I'm about to say is gonna light the internet on fire. As far as all of the new cool things with the way that the rage virus has evolved in this movie, Zack Snyder did it first. I'm sorry to say it. Zack Snyder did it first because he introduced the concept of zombie reproduction all the way back in Dawn of the Dead. And then he did it again for Army of the Dead for the purposes of like, because Dawn of the Dead, it was a matter of, oh, like a woman who's already pregnant gets infected, turns into a zombie, and then her baby ends up also being a zombie. Army of the Dead, it's you just straight up have zombies reproducing, whereas like you have zombie. In addition, Zack Snyder also already did the concept of the alpha zombie in Army of the Dead as well. So that's where I'm like, there's a couple things here where I'm like, this is cool, but I've seen this before. So that's the one instance where it's not new. The other thing is, and this also ties into another point as well that has to do with the sequels, which is the zombie baby, right? So obviously, again, halfway through, this is a big note of point. When first you see like the zombies kind of like almost like grazing, almost like in a weird way, almost like the proto-humans last year in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And it's called, you know, they've almost kind of become domesticated to nature almost. And then in the middle, you see a pregnant zombie. And you're like, oh, okay, so this is the Chekhov zombie. Inevitably, she's going to give birth. And it's going to be around the survivors. And then that's exactly what happens. And then you have this really cool moment where Jodie Comer is, is like gripping her hands and is allowing the female zombie to give birth. And then magically, somehow, the baby that the zombie gives birth to is not a zombie. It is uninfected. So I'm like, okay, this could be something really cool because this actually kind of ties into the one point of where 28 weeks later was going for before they inevitably screwed the pooch, which was the idea of people being naturally immune to the virus. Because the whole kickoff for 28 weeks later is they discover this kid's mom who was previously left for dead, who they thought had survived and was infected with the rage virus, but somehow was still able to maintain her humanity. So she was a carrier. She was still capable of passing the virus, but she herself was naturally immune. And so they were potentially going to do a cure before the stupid husband breaks in, kisses her, gets infected, and all hell breaks loose. But so this is definitely hinting at the idea that, okay, natural immunity in this world does still exist and they can potentially come up with a cure until you realize that, oh, that's the thing they're going to save for the sequels. And if we were guaranteed both the sequels that they said they want to do, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. But as Danny Boyle said, so they have, the way that the sequels are going is they have shot The Bone Temple, which is the immediate sequel and follow to this, which Boyle will not direct. It will be directed by Nia DaCosta, which worries me. Because that's the director of the Candyman reboot and the Marvels. I don't blame her for the Marvels, but still not a great track record. And that movie is also set to come out in January. Also not a good sign. And then, it's red flag after red flag after red flag. And then the third one, which Danny Boyle and Alex Garland will come back for after Danny Boyle is done shooting his Antarctica movie, if that even still happens, and Alex Garland is done shooting the Elden Ring movie for A24. Only then, if these first two movies make a profit, will they then come back to do the third one, which Cillian Murphy will also come back for. And I'm just sitting there reading all this, being like, wait a minute.
Star Wars 2.0, baby.
I'm like, you mean to tell me that not only are we getting a sequel not directed by them only 6 months after this one, which inevitably means that this one is going to leave off on a cliffhanger, which, I love those so much. Yeah. But then we have to wait for all of this to be resolved for a third movie that we may not even get. Yikes. So, with all of that being said, Yodel, Theo, what do you guys think of that in relation to this movie?
One of my major things about this movie, I discussed this on the way home, was that it's not a standalone movie. You can tell that it's like a piece to a greater puzzle. And with that information, it's a little scary because like it has so many loose threads like coming out of it that I'm like, if this is not pre-planned and like all of this is still, I don't know. Now that makes me sad because it can make it has the potential to be such a great trilogy, but that's scary.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is.
That's my direct comparison was the second Spider-Verse movie, Across the Spider-Verse, but also, I mean, the thing with that one was the first one is very good standalone. Yes. And then the second one is like part of a like two-parter.
Right.
Versus this one is the first movie in a trilogy. And it's already jumping that gun and being like, it's worth it to wait for that second part. That being said, I feel like similar to Across the Spider-Verse, I feel like it did have a solid arc in itself as far as like the coming of age, coming into his own of the kid, and the journey with the mom. However, like we're saying, like all of the different threads and stuff, leave it so that a lot of the merit of this movie depends on the sequel.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of where I get worried, because so it's funny that you bring up Spider-Verse, right? Because my direct comparison to this is Dune, and Dune, I'll admit, we got very lucky knowing that we had Denis directing and knowing that he had such a vision. But the thing that people may forget this is it has been like 6 years, I think, since we got the first Dune trailer. But when the first trailer dropped for the first Dune, they did not tell us that was going to be part 1 of 2 with that trailer. Now, obviously, anybody I feel like with common sense would be able to be like, okay, just who had read the book would be like, okay, there's no way they're going to be able to adapt that whole book in one movie. I thought that they could have, but I'm a psychopath. My whole thing is I'm like, if you could do the 5-hour long edition, just do the 5-hour long edition. Just do it. Fuck it. I still think that movie would have made $1 billion, but whatever. I never get my way. So, with that being said, when, they market that movie as just Dune, but then when you watch the movie, it says Dune Part 1, kind of reminded me a lot of this, where I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. Like, I'm so excited. I'm like, 28 is back. It's going to be 28 years later. This is a whole new world. And then they start announcing it there. Danny Boyle's like, oh, yeah, there's going to be a sequel that's coming out called called The Bone Temple, and Nia DaCosta's directing. It's going to come out in January. I'm like, what? What was that? What? And then I see the movie, and I'm like, oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And then as much as I loved Jumpin' Jack O'Connell and his fucking merry band of British pop culture recreations doing parkour against zombies at the end, and as much fun as that was, I was like, oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. This is where we're going to end. Not only can you not give us any resolution, but you have to leave us with an awesome action sequence for a set of characters that we're going to have to wait 6 months to spend any time with.
I will say that I agree with all of y'all, because the fact, I wonder what the plan was, because I'm gonna assume plans definitely change, especially with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland being very busy people. Like, this isn't them in 2002. They're very established. Like, Alex Garland's hush about this Elden Ring movie. Like, we don't even know when he's gonna start filming that. But I do feel like, what was the original plan? Because I'm gonna say this too. I really do feel like this film had a different story, because if you look at Aaron Taylor Johnson's role, you cannot tell me that man did not have a bigger role. And I'm going to blame Craven the Hunter on that shit. So thanks, Craven the Hunter.
Thanks, Craven. Thanks, Cody.
What I feel like there was a different plan in place. Mm-hmm. And they were like, we're going to do all 3 movies. Like, I feel like that's what we wanted to do. But once they started getting those projects, it's like, okay, well, we still need to get something at least comparable to kind of set up for the second movie. So I feel like they ended this in a way to give Nia DaCosta that tee up for the second movie, but there are red flags. I call it fuck you, it's January. That's when they dump all the movies they have no faith in at all. I could be wrong, because we've had some years where January's been good, but
it's been a long time since we've had a good January.
Well, we had Megan and The Beekeeper the last 2 years.
Yeah, but those are 1 movies each. Did you forget Night Swim?
Listen, that's a classic. But it's just like, to have a sequel to something so anticipated to come out just in January after Whimper, it's just kind of scary to me. And then when Nia DaCosta, I know I didn't like Candyman 2021. I wasn't impressed by that. I didn't like the Marvels at all. So I'm like, her doing a 28 years later movie was just weird. And I'm getting those flashbacks of Star Wars where it's like, y'all probably do not have this planned out, because you're going to see if this movie bombs or not, because I don't have faith in it, because even now people are very divided on this film now. Like, it has a good ratings, but there's a lot of discourse saying like, is this worth the hype and everything? Is this going to really lead to anything? And to just kind of, it's going to be interesting to see how that's styled, because I don't think Garland's writing the second one either.
No, he's not.
So this is the problem. Like, are you going to have people that are going to, do you have notes for what you want to do to lead up to the third movie, or you just say, hey, just do whatever you want? And we're definitely gonna have a repeat of Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, where Garland and Boyle have to come in for a third movie and start to fix everything if this one fucks up.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And not to mention, so Mac, you brought up Craven the Hunter only because, again, this is still the greatest line that you possibly have ever cracked on the podcast. Tell Yudel and Theo what your thoughts are on Madame Web.
Oh, it's one of the greatest movies of our time. It is like the ultimate movie. It has writing, it has directing, it has acting. It has Dakota Johnson. It's got Sydney Sweeney. You know, we all love Sydney Sweeney. She's selling her bathwater now. It is the most. I think I said like it's the most 2002 movie that was.
Oh no, that's not what it was. That's not what it was.
What did I say?
You were like, I can't even say this is the greatest movie of our time. Like Morbius, this is the anti-movie of our time.
Yeah, because it's just like I was just like that was the point where like Sony just really was giving up and being like, yeah, and then like when The Craven the Hunter came out, I remember I was like, man, at least Aaron Taylor Johnson's got 28 years later because this is not going to take a hit on him. And then he's like, I swear, like, I think going with 28 years later, like, I feel like the problem I have with some, because I gotta say, the second act, I was not a fan of the second act. I think the comedy in it in the second act was a little out of place. Like, I know you had to get some little light comedy in there with the Swedish guy, which I thought I did like because it did introduce the fact that he's like, hey, we got regular lives outside of here, but if we come to this infected zone, we ain't getting out. And it's kind of cool that he was showing the kid, like, hey, you know what this is? This is a phone. And I will say, it did give me a laugh. Like, this is my ex-girlfriend. And it looks like the biggest, like,
plastic OnlyFans model.
Yeah, he goes, my neighbor has that with the shellfish allergic reaction. It's just like, but I think that I didn't like really the second act, and until Ray Fiennes came on, like the third act, I think that's when the movie dragged on a bit, and there was a lot of very unnecessary scenes with that. Especially like, of course, we got to talk about the one scene that people thought, is that Cillian Murphy's character, the zombie rising up? And everyone's like, what? But it's like, no, obviously that's not that because they wouldn't kill off Cillian Murphy.
It looked a lot like him though. Especially with like a 5-second thing. They definitely did that. Like purposely cast somebody who looked like him. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Mac. The second act is really where it started to lose me, and I'm like, oh, what are we doing here? And literally, it is thanks to the power of Ray Fiennes that this movie is salvaged because as soon as he comes back in, he steals every fucking scene and proves once again that he is like possibly the greatest actor of his generation. Like I cannot stress enough the run that Ray Fiennes has been on the last decade. And again, this is not somebody who is like new in any way, shape, or form. Ray Fiennes is 63 years old, has been acting for over 4 decades now, had an iconic run as one of the most iconic villains of our generation as Lord Voldemort for the second half of the Harry Potter franchise. And ever since he finished with that, I literally wrote it down in the review, like the track record that he has been on. I'm literally gonna pull it up because I don't want to screw it up.
He was having fun with this movie too. That's
and that was the best part. He was having fun, clearly, and it showed.
He was the true comedy because some of his lines were actually like really funny. But then, Theo, did you mention it with what was the saying he kept saying to
Memento Mori?
That was very like powerful every time he said it, especially near like that ending. It's like, holy shit, like this is very like, and like obviously he's coming back because they do set up with the whole Bone Temple, like, and that's like the Bone Temple itself. I think that's the strongest part of the movie because it does show you like, holy shit, this guy's like a doctor and he's like he's cleansing all these bones. It kind of leaves like this like this crematorium is like, I think that's really interesting to have introduced that to kind of like hey, we can pay our respects like that. And I think that I'm going to be curious to see how it's going to play into the next movie since it's called the Bone Temple. So I don't know.
The thing about Ray Fiennes' character that really makes for him being the best part of the most interesting part about the movie is that he's somebody he's really the only character that's kind of evolved with the times. He's somebody who still has this understanding of like life and death and the way that it is ultimately shifted, and how even with, the virus basically shifting the terms of that, how basically, once somebody passes on, once somebody dies, like you can't get them back ultimately. It's I wrote it was something recently. I don't remember what. Oh no! So actually, funnily enough, it reminded me actually a lot of the Black Mirror episode "Be Right Back," which I don't know if you guys seen. It's the one with Haley Atwell and Donald Gleason. Basically, where he ends up dying in a car accident, and then she ends up ordering an AI replica of him in order to try and see if, like, is this a way of replacing him? And then ultimately chose it, like, okay, no, it can't. It's like you can replicate it as much as humanly possible, but at the end of the day, nothing can bring people back from the dead. And that was, I thought, one of the more touching parts of Harry Potter as well. Dumbledore touched on that as well a lot when he was always talking with Harry about, like, no spell can bring back the dead, but. So I feel like Ray Fiennes' whole character in this, besides being the only person that could identify that Jodie Comer had cancer, but him being kind of this, kind of, for lack of a better word, mad scientist who it turns out was more sane than everybody. People, the whole setup for him was like, oh, he lost his mind. You know, he was, the last time we saw him, he was burning all these bodies, and then he just waved at us, so we thought he had gone crazy and lost his mind. And it turns out, no, he was just the one person that was like surviving against the zombies and was literally just like cleansing the bodies so that they could like have a proper burial, you know, constructing this temple as like an homage to them ultimately. And it leads to ultimately this heartbreaking moment when he's like, look, we have to euthanize her because she's literally just suffering at this point. And then when he climbs the temple and places the skull on top, that's when I'm like, okay, this movie saved itself ultimately. It's like, I still have problems with the second act, but yeah, that was really touching. And his you know, the Latin speeches, Memento Mori, Memento Amoris. I was like, oh, that hit right here. That was really, really good stuff. So what did you guys think of the Ray Fiennes section of the movie?
Yeah, loved it. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I feel like I'm curious how the Bone Temple comes back, because it was, if like, how much of the movie is going to take place at the Bone Temple if it's titled the Bone Temple?
Yeah.
Because in this movie, it was such like it's such a great
Like
literalization of like what the movie is about, with all of this death and rage, but then like building, like remembering that death is like inevitable, and trying to remember the people who die, which I guess they're doing on the island too with like their little crosses. But yeah, no, he served an amazing performance.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I agree with Mac where the military guy was fun, and it was like, it got a lot of laughs in the theater that we were in, but like it lingered for just too long.
Yes.
Like the what's it called, when they were like sitting in the field for a little bit, that was a little too long.
Yeah.
And establishing him, which I feel like, I was telling Theo, I feel like there's going to be like a military presence somewhere along in the next few movies, because I'm like, there's a little too much military propaganda in this that I'm like, I feel like it's gonna show up somehow. But yeah, the fact that he was covered in iodine, and the thing is, okay, you know, I am a nurse.
I was about to say, I'm like, as the only medical professional here,
right there, I told Theo about this, where I was like, I feel like this movie also, we saw a play of several weeks ago. It's very similar about like apocalypse things, but it wasn't zombies. It was like nature apocalypse.
Okay.
And we had such an issue with different apocalypse things when they try to over-explain themselves, try to logic their way through like many different things to help the audience understand. And I'm like, no, sometimes things can just be. And then I can't argue with you, because that's how the thing is going. So with this, where it's like, oh yeah, Alpha Zombie can rip out an entire spine. Sure. I'm not going to argue with that. That works. Oh, he's covered in iodine because the virus doesn't like iodine. Sure. The zombie baby comes out normal because the placenta divides the baby's blood and the mom's blood. Sure. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot of stuff that like that where I'm just like, okay, there's a lot of things that logically I'm going, well, how does this? And I'm like, I'm not gonna think too hard, because it's happening in the movie and it makes sense in the context of everything. So I was like, all right, that works. And I loved it. The visual, because like in the trailers where he's covered in iodine, we're like, looks nuts, this looks insane. And they have the boots kind of sound going through the bone temple, where you're like, oh my god, what is this? And then the Bone Temple actually shows up on screen, and it's such soft, tender music. I'm like, I hate to say it like this, but I feel like I was a little deceived, where it's like, oh, it's supposed to be this insane, crazy, edgy thing, and it's like all these bones up. But then it pops up, and it's supposed to be really tender, and I was like, that's interesting. I was deceived, but in a good way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like even within the movie, with setting him up as this insane mad doctor
that you should fear,
who's burning all the bodies like just lined up before he had like really gotten far with the Bone Temple. I feel like even within the movie, it's like, yeah, very intentional the trying to like subvert your expectations, and then or set up your expectations and then subvert them when you realize, no, like it's almost like religious and artistic. Like he's a man of science, but then has realized in this post-apocalypse that like all there is at the end of the day is death, and you have to accept it and respect it and just honor those who are gone.
Yes. Yeah, couldn't agree more, honestly. And like I said, it's why that is the best segment of the movie, and that's why it makes like the actual. It's why I wish that had been the actual ending. Like if the last shot of the movie had been him putting the skull on top of the Bone Temple, it would have been perfect. But then the movie has to keep going, and it
Power
leads to the
Rangers.
stupid cliffhanger, and I'm like, oh, great. What are we doing?
Can
So
I-
like I said,
Can
yeah.
I add something too? Because we
Yes.
talk about this aspect of the movie, the cinematography.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't talk about that and how they shot it.
They shot these on iPhone. They shot this movie on iPhones, and that is impressive. I just got an iPhone 16e, great camera quality, but I know it's supposed to be like you use anything in your surroundings for cameras, and it was supposed to get that look of the original film. Because if you don't know this, 28 Days Later does not have a 4K release. It still looks like 2002 low grade, like bootleg shit. And that's on purpose because it's like they filmed it on digital cameras to make it authentic. But guys, it is 2025. We can throw a little bit of IMAX into it because there was times I was watching this where I'm like, I could tell that this was shot on an iPhone because it's so grainy, and I know that was the intended purpose of it, but it's like some of the shots, like I know Anthony Manuel, who did the first two films, he came back. I love the shot, like the shot with Cillian Murphy looking at the deserted London is still one of the most iconic shots. It's like my Facebook profile picture. It is incredible, but like now I'm just like, okay, we're in a new environment. We're not in the cities. We're in the forest. You can use some IMAX cameras to kind of get that good quality. And I know you want to capture the same spirit, but like the cinematography was like both hit and miss for me because it's just some of the quality just was not good, especially in an IMAX screen. It came off as very needing a little bit more time in the oven to cook.
Yeah. I'm back and forth on the cinematography because, yes, I do tend to agree that I'm like, okay, this didn't look as good as I was hoping to, especially since, the amount of great films that we've seen that look great that are shot on iPhones. Florida Project is still a very notable example to me. But there was one editing sequence that I saw where, like, you guys saw all the behind the scenes of, like, the one rig that they came up with the 18 iPhones all in a row. And there was one scene where, like, there was like a shift that normally would have been like a camera sliding on like a dolly, but you could tell that like, oh no, they just cut between the 18 iPhones. That was really cool. I'm like, okay, that was sick. Other than that, though, I do tend to agree. I'm like, I wish this could have looked a little bit better for the most part. But like I said, so we're going to be wrapping up soon. But for the most part, so typically what I do when I go around and wrap up is I typically ask people for their final thoughts and their star ratings out of 5. So Viodel, Theo, what are your guys' final thoughts and star rating for 28 years later?
You go first.
I really enjoyed it. I feel like for me, I've watched the first one like a few times at this point over the years, and I feel like it also is like rough. Like it's very much like, I mean, like we were talking with like the second act. There's like the second act of the original 28 Days. It does meander.
It does.
But that's kind of the point.
Yes.
And so I feel like this very much in like it's like rough around the edgesness with like the iPhones, with like the way it's shot, was like a interesting mix of that roughness and like trying to bring that back while also adapting to where Alex Garland and Danny Boyle are at now with like the sentimentality and like the visuals, and like kind of elevating it a little bit. So for me it was like a solid 4 or 4.5, I think. But also, again, it's very dependent on the quality of the next movie, because however these threads are tied up, that will then make going back and watching this one either more enjoyable or less enjoyable.
Yeah. The inevitable problem of trying to do TV on movies.
Yeah.
I agree. I also think it's a solid 4. Overall, I enjoyed watching it a lot. I enjoyed watching it. I can see where it can be, again, it's that whole like, it feels like I enjoy movies in a trilogy that feel solid. I feel like I'm watching this movie and then it's tied in with the next movie. I don't really enjoy watching movies that are like wait for the next one. You just hold on. It gets better. So like I enjoyed watching it in general, but it did feel like I was kind of waiting for something else. But yeah, I enjoyed it. 4.
4. All right, Mac, your final thoughts and star ratings on 28 years later.
I will say it's funny you mentioned like waiting for the next one. I'm still waiting for the next Golden Compass movie. It'll happen one of these days.
Oh no, that's never happening. That's never happening. It's never happening. They already did it as a TV show. They already did it as a TV show. Go watch his Dark Materials on HBO. That'll give you the follow up to Golden Compass.
That's what movie lives in my brain too.
That's just one of the funniest like ways of saying like we'll be back for another movie, or like even the Divergent movies.
Okay.
Like we'll get part 2 one of these days. But I gave it an A-. I think that out of like a letter grade, probably like 4.5 or number grade. I think that it had that trailer was just so great. It was going to be hard to live up to that hype of it, especially like the tone and everything. But it was just a good reintroduction back into the world of the 28 franchise. So I'm glad that we have a movie. It'll be interesting to see how this goes from here. And I'm just happy that a new generation can finally watch a new one of these movies, because there was a time we didn't even know if we were gonna get a movie. Like even after because if you don't know, the first 2 movies are technically owned by Disney now because they bought Fox.
That's true.
So the 28 days later, 28 weeks later, in the Disney universe, so Mickey's gonna be running around. But I'm just happy that we're getting more. I'm excited just to see what it entails, and I'm excited to see Alfie Williams, because I will say I thought I was going to hate this kid because I don't like kids in apocalypse movies, but he did a good job, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do for this trilogy, because he's definitely going to be the main nucleus kind of leading the story, and I'm excited to see what other roles he does and who they're going to bring on for the next couple films too, because we don't even know who else is going to be on. We know that we got Jack O'Connell, him, Ray Fiennes, and then Cillian Murphy.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Alfie Williams did really, really impress me, especially since, again, we went into this movie expecting that it was going to be an Aaron Taylor Johnson vehicle, but then it ended up being this kid. That's the main character. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah. My thoughts are, basically a combination of your guys. I really like the kind of the reintroduction of the world aspect, getting used to kind of what the world looks like, and the Ray Fiennes parts of it. The middle parts and the cliffhanger setting us up for the sequels that now make this movie's quality dependent on those movies' qualities. Not so much. So that's why I couldn't give this as high as a 4, because 4, I'll admit, I've been really liberal with the 4-star ratings in the past, and I've given a lot of movies that did not deserve them 4-star ratings. So that's what I went with 3.5, only because I couldn't justify the 4. I just couldn't. I did still enjoy it for the most part, though. The good parts were really good. And like I said, so now we're gonna see. We'll just have to wait for the Bone Temple in January and see if that one holds up. Oh boy, we love depending on sequels in order to determine the original's quality. Oh man. So Yodel, Theo, words. Happy to have you guys on. This is a lot of fun having you guys on. If you guys have any social media that you want to plug, if you want to plug the Monotonous social media.
You can follow the Monotonist at the.monotonist on Instagram. My Instagram is typical T423, and then my website is typicaltbillups.com.
Which he does also do movie reviews, but like
nice.
I've started to dabble,
Nice. So you're doing what I did back when I graduated high school. I'm enjoying it. Yeah. Well, I'm anxious to see when you eventually join the Letterboxd Hive, or if you're going to be able to resist it.
I've been on there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. Perfect.
He wrote one, Dom, that I think you'd enjoy, which was about Shakespeare and Planet of the Apes.
Ooh.
Yeah, he wrote that one recently.
Yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds a lot of fun. Send that my way. Yodel, you have any socials you want to plug?
My Instagram is Yodel Tan. Thank you. What do you want me to do? You want me to drop my accent?
No. It's just
you want
funny.
me to drop my reel?
No, it's the way you phrased it. It was just hysterical. You're just like, my name is. It's like, follow me, Yodel Tan. Bye. It's just like that. It's hysterical. Oh man, Mac, where can people follow you on the interwebs?
Well, first, shout out to Denny's. 10 years ago, we had the Slamtastic 4 menu, complete with the Thing Burger and Human Torch Skillet. Yep, to promote that Fantastic Four movie, the movie of our time. But you can follow me on Instagram at Mac Movie Reviews. I'm on the TalkTick, Mac_movie_reviews. YouTube is the same as well. Dom's going to be coming back on for our live stream. We're going to be doing a recap of 2008 films with my good friend Rod. It will be a fun time, so go check us out. We do good things.
Yeah, that's going to be good. And also, Mac, I had a couple of draft ideas that I wanted to send you as well for potential new thing. We still got to do that A24 tier ranking as well that we were talking about. So
we already did it.
Ah, fuck, that's right. I did miss that. Damn it. All right, I'll figure out another one for me to come on. Fuck my work schedule. All right, you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Follow myself on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies and Lost. We'll see you guys next time.